Hello, my name is Lloyd Chapman. I'm the president and founder of the American Small Business League, and I'd like to talk to small business owners. I'm making this video specifically for people out there that are small businesses working with the government and government prime contractors. And I've been talking to small businesses now for about 7 years. And I've seen a pattern that's held true over the 7 years, and it's the fact that most small business owners are actually afraid to speak out. They're afraid they're going to get blacklisted or blackballed, or their contracts will be canceled. And they're just letting federal contracting officials and contracting officials of prime contractors force them to compete head-to-head with Fortune 500 corporations for small business contracts, and they're afraid to say anything about it. Well, let me tell you something. That's the last thing in the world you want to do. Do not be afraid of the government. I assure you the founding fathers of this country did not want you to be afraid of the government, just the opposite. They wanted the government to be afraid of you. And there's no need for you to be afraid of your government, particularly if you're being mistreated or being forced to participate in programs in a way that they weren't designed. So trust me, when George Washington and Benjamin Franklin signed the Declaration of Independence, they did not want you to be afraid of the government. So speak out. If you see something that you don't like, say something about it. Think what's going to happen if all the small business owners just sit there, quaking in their boots, afraid to say something while the government passes more and more policies that take the money that's intended to go to small businesses like yours and give it to Fortune 500 corporations, and you're afraid to say something. Guess where that's going to end up? So don't be afraid of the government. I'll tell you how I got started as a small business advocate. I was in a small businesses like yours, and I was sitting in my office one day, and a young woman came into my office, and she had spent months working on a contract with the Commerce Department, and she was told it was a small business set-aside contract, and we lost it to a company in Amsterdam with 26,000 employees around the world in 26 countries. I couldn't believe it. I called everybody in Washington. That night I sat down at my computer. I looked at the SBA's database of small businesses called ProNet back in 2002. I found 600 of the biggest companies in America and some of the biggest companies in Europe were getting small business contracts. Some of you may know I got a congressional investigation. There was a hearing. The Associated Press picked up the story. It ran in newspapers all across the country. I thought it was going to be over. That was 7 years ago. The only thing that's changed, there's been another 12 investigations, and it's still ongoing. I remember shortly after I testified before Congress, and I really thought that this was going to be over, I was in Atlanta at a convention, and a man and his wife had seen the story in the local newspaper and wanted to talk to me, and they were in the computer business. And between this seminar out in the hall, I started talking to them, and they had gone to an SBA conference about starting your own business and selling to the government and taking advantage of the government's small business contracting programs. And they had both quit their jobs and taken a second on their house, used all their retirement money to start this small business. Well, they'd been in business for about 6 months, and they were going bankrupt. And they were losing government small business contracts to this company in Amsterdam that I'd lost contracts to, and divisions of Fortune 1000 corporations and Fortune 500 companies, and they were going bankrupt. And the wife started to cry, and her head tilted down, she's crying. The tears came down her cheek and were dripping off her chin onto her dress. The husband, leaned in to try to console her and start talking to me, and he's crying. I'll never forget that. I will never forget that, and it's one of the many things that motivates me. When Congress passed the Small Business Act in 1953, they did not mean for these small business contracts to go to Fortune 500 corporations and Fortune 1000 corporations and companies in England, Holland, France. This is America. These programs were designed by Congress for American small businesses. Please join me, quit being afraid, and let's work together and demand that our government put an end to the diversion of federal small business contracts to Fortune 500 corporations. This is America. It's a democracy. Don't be afraid of them. Make them afraid of you. I'm Lloyd Chapman with the American Small Business League. Thank you.